Today we are creating this stunning fish simulation in Blender, plus building the beautiful sea environment it lives in, all in Blender, which is gonna be a step-by-step and perfect for beginners. So the first step is making the fish in Blender. To start with, what we can do is select everything and then press X to delete it. Now we can start with an object by pressing Shift A and then click on this cube. So whenever you are modeling something in Blender, make sure it resembles the actual size of the real world. So if you press N, selecting this cube, it will give you the dimension of it. Now I'm going to change the dimension of the X to around 5 centimeters. If you press the tab key, it will go to the Y. Change the Y to 30 centimeter. Make sure you are entering the centimeter as well. Again press tab and it will press, and now we can enter the Z value, which will be around 10 centimeter. So I'm going for something like this. To focus on this object, you can press the console key and click on the view selected. If you're wondering whatever the key I am pressing, I'll just turn on the screencast keys for you. Now at the left bottom corner you can see what key I am pressing on the keyboard. Okay, let's just focus on this. Now to start editing it, I'll go by pressing the tab and go into the edit mode for this one. Then we'll press Ctrl R to add some edge loop. First edge loop I'm gonna add here. So left click, then it will allow you to slide it, then right click to cancel the sliding. Again same way, press Ctrl R to add edge loop here as well. And then finally 3 more edge loop here. By scrolling your mouse wheel you can add more edge loop, of course. Left click and right click. So first we are going to make it sharp at the start and at the end. So we'll select these faces. You can click this face icon to select faces and then scale them down from here and here as well. So that is done. We can make it spherical by selecting this edge. So just change it to the edge selection mode. Alt and left click this edge. Select these edges. Scale on the Z axis also. So I'll select these edges as well, scale on the X direction like this, so it is kind of a fluffy fish. Let's move this out as well by pressing the G and the Y key, so it is out as well. Now to make it still, we can select these faces at the back and then press E to extrude them. Let's flatten them by pressing the S and the X key like that. Also I'll straighten them on this particular Y axis, so press S and then press Y. Straighten them on the Y-axis and press 0 to totally straighten them. Left click. Also let's make it more flatter, something like this, and then we can go click this for a side view and extrude it a little bit like that. Scale it up, again extrude it, scale it up, move it out a little bit, and lastly I'll select these vertices by pressing the 1 key so that we can select the vertices and then move them a little back like that. That is our fish. And the last thing I would like to do is select this edge loop as well and scale it so it is perfectly spherical. A simple trick to make it really good is just by going again into the edit mode, select everything and subdivide it one time. Now I will make these all the faces and the geometry a bit more smoother. You can go to the vertices and here you will get the option to smooth vertices. Repeat this 2 more times to get a really good result. After that, to get a really nice result, you can go to the modifiers tab from here and then add a modifier that will be decimate. Now we'll change the mode to unsubdivide and change the iteration to 1. And now look at that, and make sure then lastly to apply the scale on it. Now that we have made our fish, we need a path for our fish. That is going to be really easy by pressing Shift A and then go to the curves, but you won't have these options. You have to enable them. So to enable them, go to the edit, go to the preferences, and here you can search for the get extensions. The extension that I install is called extra curve objects. You will get the same option of installing on this one. Then click on install and we can close this tab. And here what we just do is again press Shift A, go to the curves and select the spirals and arc median. Before you click anywhere else, you get this drop down here for the curve spiral. Let's expand this and change some properties. First of all, let's increase its height as it is really flat. So I'll change the height to 0.5 and it is better than before. Now if we increase the number of turns to 8, it will increase its height even more. Steps, we don't need so many steps, so we can set it to 5. But as you can see, the curve has become really low poly. To make it smooth, we can just change the curve type to the knobs and we have a smooth curve. After that, what I want, the last thing is to change the direction of this curve. So we can change the direction from counterclockwise to clockwise. And that should do for us. Now you can click anywhere in this world. Also, let's just move this up a little bit. Now the next step is making our fish follow this particular path. So for that, we are going to utilize geometry nodes, and that is going to be a really simple step. So first of all, let's just add a mesh, a plane into the scene. But before we start with that, we have to rename all the objects. So first of all, let's rename this fish. As you can see, it is cube. I'll change this name to fish. You always don't have to go into the scene collection right here to change the name. You can just simply select that object and press F2 and then you can rename it. So this is going to be the geo path node and this will be the simply path. So let's select our plane again, divide our panel from here, and then we can switch to a geometry node editor. Now there is nothing here yet because we have to click on this new icon, so it will automatically add geometry node modifiers in the modifier section, and this will be present here. We can get rid of this group input, which is the plane. Now we can bring in our path here, but if we selected the path, our geometry node faded away, so we can again select the geometry path node and click this pin icon so that it doesn't disappear. Now you can drag the path inside the geometry node and connect the path to geometry node. After that, we can hide the path from the collection so that we don't have to work with it right now. And make sure you set it to relative as well, because only then the transformation that we made on the curve will be able to see that. Now for example, we are going to start working with just a simple point. So press Shift A and search for points. And here is a point. Now we want to this point right here to be on that curve. Our curve has disappeared, but don't worry about it. We can bring it back by again enabling the curve from here. Now so that it follows the path, we can fetch the position of the curve from this here geometry. So what we need is, by pressing Shift A, we will search for sample curve node, and if we plug this into the curve, now it will give us various results, which is position, tangent and normal. What we need is the position, so we can connect this position, a set position node, which will be connected to our point. So if we connect this to the position right here, you can see the point has moved to the start of the curve, and if we change the factor here, it will follow the path. Now we want it to automatically follow the path, so we can add a scene time node, which is always really helpful for us, and then connect the seconds to the factor right here. If we start our animation by hitting that spacebar, you can see it is moving. First issue is that it is moving way too fast. Second, when it reaches the top, it just stops there. To fix that, first let's just slow it down, so we can use a simple math node, bring it in between, change this to divide. Divide is going to slow it down. The higher the value, the slower will be the speed. So I'm setting it to 100, and if you play it now, you can see it moving really slowly. Now the second thing is that we want it to repeat, right? So we can duplicate this divide node, paste it right here, and then change this to fraction. Right now it's very slow, so we won't be able to see what is happening. So let's just mute this by pressing M, so it's back to its normal speed. And if we play from the start, you will be able to see it looping back from the start. Again, unmute this. Now we want to increase the number of points, as there won't be just a single fish. To increase the number, we can increase the count from here. So I'm going to set it to 4000, like that. Point is still the one. The reason is that because all the points are at the same position. To randomize that, we can just use a simple node after this. So duplicate this, change this to add, randomize it, we'll use random value, connect the random value right here. And now you can see all of those curves and they are moving as well. Now we can just replace all of these points with a fish. So let's just go ahead of the set position and use a node which is called instance on point. And it will require an input of instance, and here we have to plug in our fish. So let's just drag in our fish right here. Make sure to set it to relative and connect this geometry to the instance. And now you can see all the fishes. So we have tons of problem here. Let's just first reduce down the count to something like 50 so that we can see what is actually happening. The first issue is that their direction doesn't match with the curve. Fix that direction. We are given the option of this tangent from the sample curve. We can utilize that to our advantage. For that, you just simply plug this tangent into the rotation of the instance on point, but that won't fix it all. So to properly fix it, you will use align rotation to vector, plug this tangent to the vector and the rotation output to the rotation so that it converts that vector value into the rotation, and you select this Y, and now they are aligned to the curve direction. But another issue that you will see is that they are going in the opposite direction. To fix that opposite direction thing, you can just scale it on the Y by -1, and that is fixed. The next issue is that I find these fishes are looking way too big even for now, so I'll still scale them down even further. Now next, the second thing is that they are all going at the same speed. We would like to some have at a faster speed and some at a slower speed, right? So we can fix that by just going back to the scene time area, and we can just after the divide node we can duplicate this add node, change this to multiply, and then connect this randomized node. Make sure you don't set it to 100, that would be too much speed, so I'll set the 1 to the max and the minimum speed will be 0.2. And if you connect it to the multiply node, it will multiply the speed and giving random speed to each fish. If you play it now, some fish will be going faster and some will be going slower. Now the next issue is that these fishes are going to each other. So again, to fix that, we can head back to the set position right here, connect a random value node to it. But this is in float and this value right here is vector. We change this to the vector and connect this to the offset and change this to 1 and -1. But this is way too powerful, the randomness of course. To reduce it down, we can use a vector math node and set it to scale. Connect this to the scale, connect it back to the offset and reduce down the scale to 0.1 or 0.4. That should be good enough. Now we can bring our fishes back to 4000 count, and we have lots of fish and it is looking really cool. Let's have a view from the top and look at that. How cool is that view? So wasn't this really simple? I know geometry nodes can be tough sometimes, but if you understand it properly, you will get all the results you want. But we still have a problem. If you play, you will see this weird flipping. We can fix that of course, but let's just switch this to Z, and then the thing that we have to do is rotate our original fish. Focus on our original fish, rotate on x-axis by -90 degree. It can be different for you, but we have to do this, and now it should be better than before. Now our work in the geometry node is done. Now before we start making the environment in the Blender, what we have to do is arrange the scene properly. So we'll add some camera and stuff. So let's just divide this panel again from here, and I'm gonna change this to a viewport. I'm gonna make this one only a camera view. So press this X icon and I'm going to add camera by pressing Shift A and add a camera. Now I'm gonna move this out a little bit, and let's look through the camera by clicking this icon. That's too far. Let's just closer, something like that. Move the camera a little up. If you want to have that wide angle camera view, we can do that as well. But before we make that happen, we have to switch this to this report shading. After that, you have to go to the render settings and change this to cycles. After that, we can access the camera setting that we want, which is type in this panoramic. Right now it's not looking good, so what we do is change the lens to 15 and the field of view will be 360. And after that, we'll have to move our camera in a little bit more, something like that, and then rotate it as well. And I will keep the camera to something like this. We can later adjust it however we want. Now the scene needs some lighting, so there's an add-on called Blender Kit, as you can see on the top of the screen here. Can add tons of object material and HDRIs as well. So we can search for HDRI, which is clear sky, and make sure the filter has a free first. I'm gonna select this one and choose a 4K one and click on OK. It will take some time to download and then it will be applied to your scene. Our fishes are visible perfectly. This time we can make the environment. Okay, before we start making the sea, these curves are really irritating me, so I can click on this show overlays and they will be gone from this viewport. Now to make the sea, I'll add a cube inside the scene, and let's just name this by pressing F2 to sea. The first thing that I want is to be able to control its scaling from the bottom. So we can move the origin of anything. If you go to the option here, click on origin. Now we can move the origin. So I'm gonna move it on the Z axis. Press Ctrl to snap it and it is perfectly at the bottom. Before we scale it up, I'm gonna go to the option again and uncheck origin so that we can scale the object itself. First, let's move it on the Z and snap it up by pressing Ctrl. And let's scale it up so it covers the height of the fishes like that. Now to scale it on the wide area, we can press Scale Shift Z and it will scale like this. Something like this would be enough. So I'm scaling it something like this much, as you can see, X and Y dimension, and then make sure to apply the scale. Now to make it into the ocean waves, there's a really nice modifier built inside Blender. So select your object and go to the modifier section, and here we will search for ocean and click on ocean. So it has changed drastically, everything is gone. That is reason is you have to change the generate displace only. We want our original object to be here. Now the main problem here is that our object, which is this cube, doesn't have many vertices to get that displacement. First thing we will do is right click and subdivide it one time. Now don't do it further. What we are going to do is add another modifier, which will be subdivision subsurface. We are doing this so that we can control the number of subdivision and vertices on this object later. Now I'm going to change the method to simple only and increase the levels to 6. Same for the render as well. Now that will not solve everything for us. We have to optimize the ocean settings. So I'm going to increase the resolution to 25 for the both resolution viewport and the render. Now next thing is changing the depth to 90 meter and the size I'm going to change it to 0.88. That should be good enough. And lastly, I'm going to change the spatial size to 30 and we get something like these waves. And then you can just right click and shade it smooth. Now these ocean waves are not gonna animate itself. So if you go to the modifier section, here we have the option to change the time. If we move it, we can see our ocean waves animating. So what we simply have to do is click on this, press hash frame divided by 44 and just enter it. Now you can see it moving really slowly. If you would like, you can increase the size of this as well by just reducing the size, something like this. And if the waves are too high, you can go to the wave section here and decrease the scale of it. Now that we have the waves, we have to work on the material of these waves. So for the material, we'll select our sea, go to the materials tab and click this new icon. I will name this to ocean. Now we can switch our geometry node modifier to a shader editor and work on the material. So the first thing that we want is to have a transmission effect. I should be able to go through the sea. So I'll change this transmission 1. Next we will enter the roughness of the sea actual value. So I'll set it to 1.33 and that should do for us. Let's also change this one to a render view as well, so we can see our sea waves. So our lights are not going perfectly through the object. To make that happen, you'll use a node which is light path and connect the in-camera rays to the alpha, and then we get the correct transmission inside our waves. The next thing is that the thing at the bottom, I don't want the waves to be at the bottom. I can just select the faces at the bottom, press X and get rid of those faces. Instead of being it a bottomless, we can add a plane into the scene and scale it up to cover the bottom, because the light should not be going inside from the bottom. Also, I'm gonna give this plane a material which will be something really dark. Let's get back to our ocean waves. So our ocean waves are looking kind of ocean waves, but it is too smooth to be ocean waves. There should be some roughness on it. So for that we can use a noise texture. I'm gonna set this scale value to 500 and make sure to uncheck this normalize. Now to connect it to the normal here, we will need a bump node. You can connect the factor to the height here and then connect this normal to normal. And then you can get this roughness on your ocean waves. But this is too powerful, so I'm gonna reduce down. I think 0.2 will be better. And that is perfect for the ocean. And lastly, you reduce down this roughness to all the way 0 and you have really nice ocean waves. The ocean is looking really nice from the outside, but the inside is not looking really well. So for that we can play with the volume. We have a node which we'll call principled volume, and then we can connect this volume to the volume right here. This is too strong for now, so we can reduce down the density to 0.4. Don't worry if the scene looks too dark, we are going to adjust the HDRI later with this. But before that, let's just change the anisotropy to 0.5, and then to have a proper lighting inside, you can go to the object, change this to world. Now we are not able to switch this to the world because it is already pinned here, so uncheck this pin. And now we are able to access the HDRI we added. And now I can increase the strength to 2, so our scene will be illuminated a little bit better. Okay, next thing is let's head back to our ocean waves. So let's click on this object. Originally the light that gets inside the water is always gets absorbed. So for that we have a volume absorption, give us a really correct result, and we can connect these two by pressing Ctrl Shift from the right mouse button to this volume absorption, which will add the mix shader. Now I will increase the sensitivity to 2, and if you want to change the color of the ocean, you can play with this color right here, and I'm gonna drag this a little bit to the blue side, so we'll get this kind of result. If you are having problem with the density and you are not able to get proper look inside of the ocean and underwater, so you can play around with the density right here. So you can set it to 0.3, get a better illumination underwater, or 0.2 will also work. But I'm gonna go for the 0.4. The reason is that we are going to add some caustics, so it will add more lighting to our scene. To add the caustic, what we simply have to do is add a light in the scene, which will be an area light. Let's move this up like that and scale it up. Now to be able to make this light a harsh light, you have to go to the light area properties, and here change the spread to all the way 0. Also increase the power to 1000 for now, and we can see our fish a little bit better. So to have those caustics, we're going to shader editor, and here you get the option to use nodes on this light. By default we'll have this emission. What we are doing here is connecting a Voronoi texture to it, and at the distance to the color, and that will not give you anything. So the first thing that it needs is the geometry data. So let's just connect this geometry position to the vector so that it utilizes the position of our light, and we only want the position on the x and y, so we'll use a vector math, connect it in between, change this to multiply, and use only the x and y, so we'll set it to 1 and it will utilize only x and y. Now the next thing is, just after this distance node, we can change or add a color ramp just after this. That will do nothing. The real trick is with this math node. If we change this math node to minimum and connect this to second socket, first socket will have a value of 0.9. Again duplicate this and change this to a logarithm, and same way put the same value here like that. Now we have not gotten our final result. That is because we have to increase the strength here to 10, and now you can see the light coming into the scene. With that, we'll go out of the camera mode. You can see some caustics on the ground. Okay, to have better result, you can change this to ease. After that, you can increase the strength even further. Also, what you can do is click this X button and rotate our caustics. We can do is rotate it at an angle where it illuminates our fishes, and the caustic is also there in the scene. Now the last part is that the caustics should be animating continuously. So for that we can head to Voronoi texture, change this to 4D, and then in the W value press hash frame, divided by 144, and they will animate themselves continuously. Alright, these fishes should be coming from a direction, right? So we can just select our path, press tab to edit it, selecting this, view it from the top, and then we can extrude it out by pressing E and then moving it out. Same we can do to the bottom one as well. Press E to extrude it out so that we can see it coming from a particular direction. Also, the caustic size doesn't match with the scene, so I'm gonna increase the scale to 2. And also, if you slide this bar right here, you can have different kind of result. As you can see, these god rays are looking really amazing. The bottom is way too dark because the bottom should not be black. I just added that so that no light should get set inside from the bottom. So instead of this plane, we'll add another plane which will be our ground. So let's just search for mesh and a plane. Now scale this plane up, something like this large should do enough, and you can apply scale on it. Now we are going to make this plane look like sandy. So first, go to the modifier section, add a modifier that will be called displace, and the displacement has moved it up. So you can click this on new and go to this. By pressing here, we get to the texture section of the displace. We change this to the clouds and increase the size to 2. Now let's head back to the modifier section where we have this stuff. So this display strength is way too high now. You can reduce it down to 0.5 for now. But we cannot see any type of displacement on our mesh because there's no enough geometry on this. So we can again add a division subsurface modifier just before this. Make sure to drag it before this and increase the sub count to around 5 for each of them. And we are make sure using the simple method. Right click and shade it smooth. Okay, I like the result, but we can go further. So what you can do is increase the strength to 0.6 or maybe 0.7. That should be good enough for us. As you can see, our camera has clipped through the object, so we have to just move the ground a little bit down to adjust with the camera. Now this is irritating. This clipping is, I don't want to see this, so I can go back to this output, check this render region, and we'll see only the render region. Now we can take our plane or the ground a bit better. So let's head back to the modifier section, go into edit mode, give this one subdivision, just like how we did for the waves, ocean waves, to make it really high quality. Now we are going to make our sand or the bottom more grainy. So we can add texture by going to the material and click on this new icon to create a material for it. So we are going to just do the basic thing that is required from us. So use a Voronoi texture, change this scale to 1000. Before we connect this Voronoi back to normal, we will need again a bump node, connect the normal to the normal and distance to the height here, and that will make it noisy. The strength is way too much, so we can reduce down the strength to 0.5. And lastly, make sure to apply the scale on our object. If you feel like you can push it forward, you can change this to around 4000 or 3000. And if we change this one to render view as well, you can see our bottom should look something like this. Now I want to make it a bit metallic because sand sometimes can be shiny, so I'm going to reduce down the roughness and increase its metallicness. Before we move ahead, let's name all the things properly. So this one is going to be the ground. This plane is supposed to be the black one, and everything is named perfectly. Let's name this light to caustics, and that is perfect. Let's put some really good material on our fishes as well. So I can just select our original fish, go to the materials tab, add a new material on this, and name this to fish. Naming your material is always really helpful to you, and you should always do that. So let's just make it a little bit gray and change the metallicness to 0.25, and same do it for the roughness as well, so we can get some silver fishes. Now this is the last part of this tutorial where we add those stuff on the ground like sea shells and everything. So for that we have to add the seashell into the scene. So we'll again use the Blender Kit add-on. Here we'll search for seashell, and again make sure you apply the free first. So I'm just gonna use this seashells, the brown one. click them and they will be added to the scene. So there is a new collection created for them. I'll select them, press the slash key to focus on them. Now what you have to do is create another new collection inside the scene, and I will call this instance. You can put in whatever instance you want, so I'm going to put all these clam or the shells inside the instance here and get rid of this original one. By double clicking this, it will select everything and you can just press delete. Now to add these shells on that plane right here or on the ground, we'll add another plane. Press F2 and change this plane name to Geo Instance. Make sure it is outside this collection or else it will not work properly. Now we can again head to the geometry node editor and here we'll click on new. Don't want this plane original, we'll get rid of this by pressing the X, and what we actually want is the ground. We can just drag this and connect this to here. Now we don't want another ground in our scene. What we want is to distribute some points on this plane. So use distribute points on faces to distribute the points on it. Now you can just replace this point with a instance on point and bring in our collection from here and then connect it to the instance. First thing that you have to do is click separate children, and right now it's putting everything at the same place, so we can click pick instance and that will work great. We'll first increase their scale to 2. The first problem that you will notice is that they are not exactly rotated as per the ground. So we get that normal option here. We can connect this to the rotation. Again, we are going to use the same node which was called align rotation to vector. This will help fix it, but make sure you set it to the vector and they will be rotated as per the ground. Now we can randomize their scale as well using a random value node. Make sure set it to vector, connect it right here, and then the minimum I'll set it to 1 and maximum set it to 2 so that these shells have a random scale. The shells are too much, so I'm going to reduce down the density to 5 and that should be good enough for this one. Also, I want them to be like sinking inside the sand, so we can select the original one, move them down a little bit like that. If you press the slash key again, not have them in the solo view, then you will be able to see some of them. I forgot to set it to relative, of course, and the ground as well. Now it should work perfectly. Now as you can see, some of them have sunk inside the sand, and same way we can add some grass into the scene as well. So we'll search for grass, the Blender Kit add-on, and we get this grass. This grass will be really helpful as this grass is really low poly. So by default is already added to the collection and it is already at all the places. So originally this grass is way too still. To make it animate, I can do is go to the modifier section, get rid of the subdivision, add a modifier which will be displace, and it is way too powerful for now, so I'll set the value to 0.1. Then click this new and select this and add a cloud section. That should be good enough. Now to animate it, we'll add a simple empty to the scene, plane axis, press the N key, and here I will animate it on the Z axis, so type the value hashtag frame divided by 144. And the plane empty axis will continuously move on the Z axis. Let's head back to the modifier, and here in the section I'll change these coordinates to the object and select my empty. And now it will move something like this. Okay, this is too powerful. We can reduce down the scale even further so we have less movement. You can create a duplicate geo instance. I can just duplicate it, and in this one I will name to geo grass, and we'll only have grass in this one. So what we can simply do is move out the grass from this one, and we can select that high class clump, and we can separately control our grass in the scene. Before we finish, I have to share two most important things. First is the caustics should be moving along with the water. So for example, if we just duplicate this multiply node and change it to add, now if we change this value, you can see the caustic moving in a particular direction, and that's what we actually want, them to move towards the direction of the water. So I'm gonna set this value to hash frame divided by 84 so that they move very slowly. You can take it even further to something like 104 as well to make it go really slow. Now the second most important thing is if we select our ocean and go to the materials tab here. This color is really important from the visible volume. So if we change this to something light, you will see a lot of exposure in your scene, lighting up your scene perfectly. But you will lose the sea top. So to be able to see the top, you can just reduce it down so that you will be able to see a lot of the top of the ocean, but the lighting inside will be less. And that should be a good result as well. Just play around with the settings and you will get the perfect result. And if you have any doubts and if you are stuck anywhere, feel free to reach out to me. You can send your blend file on my mail ID as well. I'll help you out what you can fix to make it better. Also, if you have any doubts, you can drop that in the comment section below. And if you like this video and this was really helpful and you learned really a lot from this, please give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel for more future amazing tutorials. I hope you love this and I will see you in the next one.